South LA, Andrea Fuji, KCAL-9 News.
Selling young girls for sex, human trafficking is a $32 billion a year industry, and it's not just happening in dark alleys on the other side of the world. It's happening right here in Southern California. As KCAL-9's Melanie Woodrow shows us, the girls sold and forced into this business are younger than you'd ever imagine.
I was 13.
Before these girls were even old enough to drive.
When I was 15.
Pimps sold them for sex.
I was scared.
To insiders, it's called the game. To outsiders, it's human trafficking or modern-day slavery.
I was just stuck.
So how do girls that could be going to the mall or movies end up here on what's known as the track, playing dress-up for someone else's fantasy?
Phone's constantly ringing, and I mean, you can only answer so many calls.
I didn't sleep a lot.
Kim, not her real name, ran away from home at 15.
My mom was like really abusive.
On the street, she met another girl who said she could make money dancing, but left her in a stranger's house.
It just so happened that the guy ended up to be a pimp.
Kim said her pimp initiated her with a beating.
He welcomed me into the game.
Amber, not her real name, was also duped. At 13, her 16-year-old so-called friend dropped her off at his uncle's home.
Basically kind of sold me to him for marijuana.
Barely a teenager, Amber said she immediately understood. Amber said her mother was a prostitute and her father, her mother's pimp.
That's all I ever know.
Once both girls were in the game, it seemed there was no way out.
He told me that if I left, he had people watching me, and then as the other girls started to leave, he was like, oh yeah, well, she's dead.
I did it so that I could survive.
On 2 undercover rides with the Compton Sheriff's Station, detectives pointed out girls like Kim and Amber on Compton Boulevard and Long Beach Boulevard. Detectives said they believe these girls are prostitutes.
These streets, flooded. Flooded all day, all night.
It was hard to tell how old or how young the girls actually were. We watched girls get into cars and go to nearby side streets. Undercover detectives also took us to a nearby motel where they said many prostitutes go to have their dates. We saw even more girls walking the track during the day than we did at night. Kim and Amber said they never walked the track. Their pimps prostituted them on websites like Backpage and My Red Book. Here the ads are blatant but legal, while there are pictures, prices,
80, 120, 160,
and phone numbers to call. The ads don't explicitly say sex for sale or the girls' ages.
If they're juveniles, they're not going to put their juveniles on here. They're going to refer to them as being young, energetic.
Energetic because in this 24/7 job, Kim and Amber were forced to produce big profits.
Every night he'd expect me to come back with at least 2,000. If that didn't happen, then okay, well, the other girls are going to go get their nails and hair done, but you can't.
They never kept a dime.
I always get my money with someone. It was always with some guy.
Compton Sheriff's Station undercover detectives said often the pimps are also gang members. Selling girls for sex is more lucrative than selling guns or drugs.
This is big business. Because there's a lot of money involved. They get away with it. They know it's hard for us to detect. It's hard for us to put everything together. It's hard for the courts to convict them.
Detectives and prosecutors need a lot of corroborating evidence, which can be hard to come by, especially if a girl becomes attached to her pimp. Amber considered her most recent pimp her boyfriend. He's currently awaiting trial and could face 15 years. Kim's pimp was never arrested. As for the customers, Kim said you'd be surprised.
Doctors, some lawyers, people that just worked in corner stores.
With help from detectives like the ones we met, Kim and Amber escaped and found a new home at Children of the Night in Van Nuys. Director Dr. Lois Lee has been rescuing children from prostitution since 1979.
We've helped over 10,000 children for sure, and we stopped counting 8-10 years ago.
Here, the youngest girl is just 11 years old. Dr. Lee believes social services should intervene before predators prostitute vulnerable and often neglected or abused adolescents.
We turned our backs on these children. We created the problem.
For now, Kim and Amber are simply enjoying being girls for the first time in years.
I got a lot of my childhood back.
And planning a future that's completely different from where they were headed.
Now I know my self-worth, and now I know what my potential is.
No one controls me but me. You're not going to tell me what to do unless it's something that's going to better my life.
As you just heard, convictions can be hard to come by, but undercover detectives just had their first ever conviction in Compton 4 days ago. The pimp was convicted on a human trafficking violent felony, sentenced to 8 years, and he must register as a sex offender. If you or someone you love is a victim of human trafficking, you can find plenty of resources on KCAL9.com. All you have to do is click Seen on TV. Also, Melanie Woodrow is answering your questions on Twitter. For the remainder of the newscast, you can join the conversation at Melanie Woodrow.
And tomorrow night on KCAL-9 News at 10, brutal killers and other criminals brought to justice by dogs and cats.
It can be very powerful evidence.
Tomorrow at 10, see how a California lab is turning pets into clues and solving some of the world's toughest crimes. That's tomorrow night, right here on KCAL-9 News at 10 o'clock.
Change gears.